They say home is where the heart is, but what happens when the home you built becomes the place where your heart gets shattered into 1,000 pieces? What happens when the foundation you laid with love crumbles beneath lies you never saw coming? I learned the hard way that sometimes the most beautiful dreams can turn into the worst nightmares, and the person you trust most can be the one holding the knife behind their back. If you've ever trusted someone completely, if you've ever built something beautiful only to watch it fall apart, then maybe you'll understand my story. If you like these real-life stories, hit that subscribe button and drop a comment telling me where you're watching from. I need to know I'm not alone in this. My name is Michael. I'm 47 years old, and this is the story of how I lost everything I built in a country I thought would be my forever home. It starts in a way that probably sounds familiar to a lot of guys my age. I was tired. Tired of the dating scene back in Seattle. Tired of women who seemed more interested in my bank account than in me. Tired of relationships that felt like business transactions. I'd been divorced once already, back when I was 35. That marriage lasted 6 years and ended because we just grew apart. Or at least that's what we told people. The truth was she found someone else, someone younger, someone who made her feel alive again. I didn't blame her. Not really. But it left me feeling like maybe I wasn't enough. Maybe I'd never be enough. So I threw myself into work. I was a software consultant and I was good at it. Really good. I built up a client base that let me work remotely. And by the time I hit 45, I was making over 6 figures a year without ever leaving my apartment. The problem was, I was lonely. Money can buy you a lot of things, but it can't buy you someone to share your morning coffee with. It can't buy you someone who actually cares if you had a good day. That's when I discovered Southeast Asia. A friend of mine had moved to Thailand and kept posting these pictures online. Beaches, sunshine, smiling faces, and a cost of living that made my Seattle rent look like highway robbery. He kept telling me I should visit, that I'd love it, that the people were genuine and kind. So in early 2019, I booked a ticket to Manila, just for 3 weeks, just to see what all the fuss was about. I wasn't looking for love. I wasn't even looking for anything permanent. I just wanted a break from the gray Seattle skies and the endless loneliness of my apartment. The Philippines hit me like a wave of warm water. The chaos of Manila was overwhelming at first, but there was something alive about it. Something real. People smiled at you. They talked to you. They welcomed you like you were family, even when you were a complete stranger. And the cost of living, man, my dollar went so far, I felt like I was rich for the first time in my life. I stayed in a nice hotel in Makati, went out to restaurants every night, took taxis everywhere, and I was still spending less than half what I spent back home just on rent and groceries. That's where I met her. Not in some bar or nightclub. I met Rosa at a coffee shop. She was working there as a barista, and she had this smile that just lit up the room. She was 29, petite, with long dark hair and eyes that seemed to see right through you. We started talking. Just small talk at first. Where was I from? What brought me to the Philippines? How long was I staying? But there was something different about her. She didn't ask about my money. She didn't try to hustle me for anything. She just seemed genuinely interested in me as a person. We exchanged numbers. She showed me around Manila on her days off. We went to Intramuros, to Rizal Park, to little local restaurants that I never would have found on my own. And somewhere between the Spanish colonial architecture and the adobo chicken, I started falling for her. Hard. By the end of my 3 weeks, I didn't want to leave. We'd spent almost every free moment she had together, and I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Hope. Real, genuine hope that maybe I could be happy again. Maybe I could find someone who loved me for me. So I extended my stay. And then I extended it again. And then the world changed. March 2020. You know what happened. The whole world shut down. The Philippines went into one of the strictest lockdowns on the planet. I was supposed to fly home in mid-March, but suddenly there were no flights. The borders closed. The city locked down, and I found myself stuck in Manila with Rosa. We moved in together because I couldn't stay in the hotel anymore. Hotels were closing. Everything was closing. We found a small condo in Quezon City. Nothing fancy. Just a one-bedroom place with a tiny kitchen and a view of other condos. But it was ours. And for those first few months of the pandemic, trapped inside with nowhere to go and nothing to do but be with each other, I fell completely in love with her. We cooked together. We watched movies together. We talked for hours about everything and nothing. She told me about growing up in Leyte, about her family who still lived there, about the poverty she'd grown up in and how she'd come to Manila to find work so she could send money home. She told me about her dreams of one day having her own house, her own life, something stable and safe. And I told her about my loneliness, my failed marriage, my fear that I'd end up old and alone. We understood each other, or at least I thought we did. By August of 2020, we'd been living together for 5 months. The world was still locked down. I was still working remotely, meeting with clients over video calls in the middle of the night because of the time difference. Rosa was out of work because the coffee shop had closed permanently. But I didn't care. I had enough money to support both of us. I wanted to support her. I wanted to be the man who gave her the life she'd always dreamed of. So one night, after we'd finished dinner and we were sitting on our tiny balcony watching the city lights, I asked her to marry me. I didn't have a ring. I didn't get down on one knee. I just looked at her and said, "Rosa, I love you. I want to spend the rest of my life with you. Will you marry me?" She cried. She said yes. She held me so tight I could barely breathe. And in that moment, I felt like the luckiest man alive. We got married 2 months later, in a small ceremony with just a few of her friends as witnesses. Her family couldn't come because of travel restrictions, but we video called them, and they seemed happy for us. Her mother cried. Her father shook his fist at the camera, in what I assumed was a gesture of approval. And Rosa, my beautiful Rosa, became my wife. That's when she started talking about Leyte, about how beautiful it was compared to Manila, about how peaceful and cheap it was, about how we could build a house there, a real house with a yard and space to breathe, for a fraction of what it would cost anywhere else. She showed me pictures on her phone. White sand beaches with no tourists. Green mountains, small villages where everyone knew everyone. She told me her family had land there, land that we could build on, land that would be perfect for us. And I started to dream. I started to imagine a life where I could wake up to the sound of the ocean, where I could finish my work and walk to the beach in 5 minutes, where Rosa and I could build something permanent together. Something real. So I said, yes, let's do it. Let's build a house in Leyte. By early 2021, the Philippines was starting to open up again. Travel restrictions were easing, and Rosa and I took our first trip together to her home province. The moment I stepped off the plane in Tacloban, I knew she'd been right. This place was paradise. We took a van for 2 hours down to her hometown, a small coastal barangay that I'd never heard of, and that didn't even show up on Google Maps. But when we arrived, I understood why she loved it so much. The beaches were incredible. Crystal clear water, soft white sand, and not a single tourist anywhere, just local families swimming and kids playing. Her family's house was simple, made of concrete and wood, but it was clean and welcoming. Her parents treated me like royalty. They cooked a feast for us, lechon and pancit and lumpia and more food than I could eat in a week. Her father spoke almost no English, but he shook my hand hard and clapped me on the back, and I could tell he approved of me. Her mother hugged me and called me Anak-san, and I felt more welcomed than I'd felt anywhere in years. We spent a week there, and Rosa took me all over. She showed me the empty plot of land her family owned, about a 10-minute walk from their house and 5 minutes from the beach. It was perfect, big enough for a decent-sized house and a yard, surrounded by coconut trees and far enough from the road that it was quiet and private. She introduced me to neighbors who all smiled and waved and seemed genuinely friendly. And I met other expats, guys like me who'd married Filipinas and built houses there. They all seemed content. They all said the same thing. Best decision I ever made. Cheap living, beautiful place, good people. You can't go wrong. One guy named Tom, he was Australian, showed me his house. He'd spent about $75,000 on it, and it was beautiful. 3 bedrooms, modern kitchen, big porch, solar panels on the roof. He told me he'd built it 5 years ago and hadn't regretted a single day. Another guy, Dave from the UK, had spent closer to $120,000, but his place was even nicer, almost like something you'd see in a resort. They both told me the same thing, though. Make sure it's in your wife's name because foreigners can't own land here. But as long as you trust your wife, you'll be fine. That should have been my first warning sign. But I ignored it, because I trusted Rosa completely. Why wouldn't I? She was my wife. She loved me. We'd been through the pandemic together. We'd built a life together. So when we returned to Manila, I started planning the build. I'd saved up about $90,000 over the years, and I decided to put $80,000 of it into the house. That would cover the construction, the materials, everything we needed. We'd have a beautiful house in paradise, and I'd still have some savings left over for emergencies. Rosa was so excited. She spent hours looking at house designs online, showing me pictures of kitchens and bathrooms and porches. We talked about what kind of tiles we wanted, what color to paint the walls, whether we should have a big master bedroom or 2 smaller guest rooms. It felt like we were building a future together. And maybe that's why I didn't see what was coming. The construction started in April of 2021. Rosa traveled to Leyte more often than I did to supervise the build. I couldn't go as often because I had to work, and the internet in her hometown was terrible, way too slow and unreliable for my video calls with clients. So I stayed in Manila most of the time, and she'd go for a week or 2 at a time to check on the progress and make sure the workers were doing everything right. She'd send me pictures and videos, the foundation going in, the walls going up, the roof being installed. It was happening fast, faster than I expected, and I was so proud of what we were building. Every time she came back to Manila, she'd tell me how good it was looking, how the neighbors were impressed, how her parents were happy. And every time I felt more certain that I'd made the right decision. But then something started to change. It was subtle at first, little things that I noticed but didn't think too much about. Like when Rosa was in Leyte, it became harder to reach her. We had an agreement. If one of us called, we answered right away, no matter what. That was our rule. But when she was in Leyte, she started breaking that rule. I'd call and she wouldn't answer. Sometimes she'd call back an hour later, sometimes 3 or 4 hours later, and she always had an excuse. The phone battery died, and there was a power outage, so I couldn't charge it. I left my phone at the house and went to help my mom with something. The signal was bad where I was. I was with the construction workers and didn't hear it ring. I wanted to believe her. I did believe her at first, because everything else seemed normal. When she was in Manila with me, she was the same loving wife she'd always been. We'd go out for dinner. We'd watch movies. We'd lie in bed and talk about our future. So I pushed the doubts aside and told myself I was just being paranoid. But then it happened again. In July, Rosa went back to Leyte for another week. And again, she was almost impossible to reach. I'd call in the morning before I started work, no answer. I'd call in the afternoon during my break, no answer. I'd call in the evening after I finished. Maybe she'd answer. Maybe she wouldn't. And when she did answer, she sounded distracted, rushed, like she was in the middle of something and didn't really want to talk. I started asking more questions. What are you doing right now? Who are you with? Why didn't you answer earlier? And she'd get defensive. Why are you interrogating me? Don't you trust me? I'm just busy with the house and helping my family. Stop worrying so much. But I couldn't stop worrying, because my gut was telling me something was wrong. You know that feeling? That deep instinct that something isn't right even when you can't prove it? That's what I felt, and the more I tried to ignore it, the stronger it got. I started thinking about other little things I'd noticed. Like sometimes when we were in Manila, her phone would ring and she'd glance at it and decline the call without saying who it was. Or she'd get a text message and quickly put her phone face down so I couldn't see the screen. Small things, things that individually meant nothing, but together they started to paint a picture I didn't want to see. By August, the house was nearly finished. Rosa sent me pictures of the completed structure. It looked amazing. Modern, clean, everything we'd talked about. I should have been excited. I should have been planning when we could move in, but all I could think about was why my wife was so hard to reach when she was there. I decided I needed to talk to her about it directly. So when she came back to Manila after that trip, I sat her down and I said, Rosa, I need you to be honest with me. Is everything okay? You seem different when you're in Leyte. You don't answer your phone. You seem distant. Is something going on? She looked at me with those big eyes and she said, Michael, nothing is going on. I'm just stressed with the construction and helping my family. You know how it is there. The power goes out all the time. The signal is bad. I'm not avoiding you. I love you. Don't you trust me? And what could I say to that? If I said no, I don't trust you, it would start a huge fight. So I said yes, of course I trust you. I'm sorry. I'm just missing you when you're gone. She hugged me. She kissed me. She told me everything was fine, and I wanted so badly to believe her that I did. The house was finished in September. Rosa sent me the final pictures and it looked perfect. Our dream house. 3 bedrooms, big kitchen, covered porch, a small yard with coconut trees. Everything we'd planned. I was so proud. I wished I could have been there for the final walkthrough, but I had a big project deadline at work and I couldn't take time off. Rosa said she'd go do the final inspection herself and make sure everything was perfect. She left for Leyte on a Tuesday. And once again, she became a ghost. I called Wednesday morning, no answer. I called Wednesday afternoon, no answer. I called Wednesday night. She answered but said she was exhausted and would call me back tomorrow. Thursday morning, no answer. Thursday afternoon, no answer. By Thursday night, I was done. I was finished with the excuses and the runarounds, and the feeling in my gut that was screaming at me that something was very, very wrong. So I made a decision. I called my boss and told him I had a family emergency and needed to take Friday off. He wasn't happy about it, but I'd never asked for emergency time off before, so he approved it. I booked a flight to Tacloban for Friday morning. I didn't tell Rosa I was coming. I didn't tell anyone. I just packed a small bag and went. The flight was terrible, not because of turbulence or anything like that, but because the whole time all I could think about was what I was going to find when I got there. Part of me hoped I was wrong. Part of me hoped I'd arrive, and Rosa would be surprised and happy to see me, and there would be some perfectly reasonable explanation for everything. But another part of me, the part that had been married before, the part that knew what betrayal felt like, that part knew exactly what I was going to find. I landed in Tacloban around noon. I took a van to Rosa's hometown. It was a 2-hour drive, and every minute felt like an eternity. I kept checking my phone, hoping she'd call, hoping she'd somehow sense I was coming and fix whatever was broken before I got there. But she didn't call. When the van dropped me off in the barangay, I went straight to her parents' house. I wanted to see them first, to gauge their reaction, to see if they knew anything. They seemed genuinely happy to see me. Her mother hugged me. Her father shook my hand. They offered me food and drinks and asked why I hadn't told them I was coming. I said I wanted to surprise Rosa. They smiled and nodded and gave no indication that anything was wrong. That was a good sign, I thought. Maybe I really was just being paranoid. I left their house and walked toward our house. It was only about 10 minutes away. I walked through the village and people waved at me. Some of them called out, "Hello, sir, welcome back." It was the same friendly place it had always been. Nothing seemed out of the ordinary. I got to our house. The gate was closed but not locked. I opened it and walked up to the front door. I could see Rosa's bike parked beside the house, so I knew she was there. My heart was pounding. My hands were shaking. I reached for the doorknob and tried it. Locked. I was about to knock, but something stopped me. Some instinct, some voice in my head that said, "Don't knock. Use your key. Go in quietly." So that's what I did. I pulled out my key, unlocked the door as quietly as I could and stepped inside. The house was silent. I looked around the living room. Nothing seemed out of place. New furniture that we'd bought. Everything clean and neat. I walked toward the bedroom. The door was closed. I stood there for a moment, my hand on the doorknob, and I almost turned around. I almost walked right back out and pretended I'd never come. Because once you open some doors, you can't close them again. But I'd come this far. So I opened the door and there she was, my wife, in our bed, in the house I'd paid for, in the room we were supposed to share, with another man. The look on her face when she saw me is something I'll never forget. Pure terror. Her eyes went wide. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. The man, he was young, maybe 25 or 26. He scrambled out of the bed and grabbed his clothes, and just stood there frozen like he didn't know what to do. For a second, nobody moved. Nobody said anything. It was like the whole world stopped. And then it all came crashing down on me. Everything made sense. Every unanswered phone call. Every declined message. Every excuse. Every lie. She'd been coming here to be with him. She'd been using the construction as an excuse to see him. And I'd paid for it all. I'd built them a house. I'd bought them furniture. I'd given them everything. I turned and walked out of the room. I walked out of the house. I heard Rosa calling after me. Michael, wait, please, let me explain, but I didn't stop. I couldn't stop. If I stopped, if I turned around and looked at her, I don't know what I would have done. I walked straight back to her parents' house. When I arrived, I must have looked like a mess because her mother's smile disappeared immediately. She asked me what was wrong. I told her. I told her everything. I told her I'd just walked in on Rosa with another man in our house. In our bedroom. Her mother's hand went to her mouth. Her father's face went dark. They didn't seem shocked exactly. They seemed more disappointed, ashamed, like they'd been expecting something like this but had hoped it wouldn't happen. Her father stood up and said something in Visaya that I didn't understand, but the tone was clear. He was angry. They walked with me back to the house. By the time we got there, the man was gone. Rosa was sitting on the porch, fully dressed, crying. When she saw her parents with me, she cried harder. Her father started yelling at her in Visaya. Her mother was shaking her head, saying things I couldn't understand, but that sounded like scolding. I just stood there numb. I didn't feel angry anymore. I didn't feel sad. I didn't feel anything. I just felt empty. Finally, Rosa looked at me with tears streaming down her face, and she said, "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." "It's not what you think." I laughed. I actually laughed. Because what else could it possibly be? I asked her who he was. She said his name was Carlo. He was her boyfriend from high school. They'd been together for 3 years before she moved to Manila for work. They'd broken up because long distance was too hard, but they'd stayed in touch. They'd always stayed in touch. And when she started coming back to Leyte to supervise the construction, they'd started seeing each other again. She said she loved him. She'd always loved him. But she'd also loved me. She loved me for giving her stability, for building her a house, for taking care of her. But Carlo was her first love. Her real love. And she couldn't let him go. I asked her how long this had been going on. She said since May, 4 months. 4 months she'd been lying to my face. 4 months she'd been sleeping with him in the house I paid for. 4 months she'd been playing me for a fool. Her parents were still yelling at her, but I didn't care anymore. I told Rosa I was done. I told her she could have the house. She could have Carlo. She could have whatever she wanted. But I was leaving. I walked back inside, grabbed my bag which I'd left in the living room, and I walked away. Rosa followed me begging, "Michael, please, we can fix this. I'll end it with him. I promise I choose you. Please don't leave me." But it was too late. Everything was broken. Everything I'd built was gone. I went back to her parents' house and I asked if I could use their Wi-Fi to call a taxi. They let me. They apologized over and over. They told me they didn't know this was happening. They told me Rosa had made a terrible mistake. But apologies don't fix anything. The taxi came and I went to the van terminal and I got back to Tacloban. I got a hotel room near the airport and I just sat there. I sat there for hours staring at nothing, trying to process what had just happened. My phone kept ringing. Rosa calling. I didn't answer. She sent messages. Dozens of them. "I'm sorry. Please talk to me. I love you. I made a mistake. Please come back. I'll fix this." I deleted them all. That night I barely slept. I kept replaying everything in my mind. Every moment we'd spent together. Every conversation. Every smile. Every kiss. Had any of it been real? Or had I just been a meal ticket to her? A stupid foreigner with money who could build her a house and support her family, while she carried on with her real love? The next morning I flew back to Manila, back to our condo in Quezon City, our home, except it didn't feel like home anymore. Nothing felt like home anymore. I threw myself into work. I took every project I could get. I worked 16-hour days, sometimes 18. Anything to not think about her. Anything to not remember. But Rosa wouldn't leave me alone. She came back to Manila a week later. She showed up at the condo. I let her in because I knew we needed to talk eventually. She looked terrible. Like she hadn't slept either. She sat down on the couch and she begged me to forgive her. She said it was over with Carlo. She said she'd told him they couldn't see each other anymore. She said she chose me. She chose our marriage. She said she'd been stupid and confused, but now she understood what she really wanted. And what she really wanted was me. I asked her why I should believe anything she said. She said because she was being honest now, because she knew she'd made a terrible mistake, and she wanted to fix it, because she loved me. I told her I didn't believe her. I told her she only came back because Carlo couldn't give her what I could give her: security, money, a future. She got angry then. She said I was being unfair. She said she really did love me. She said every relationship has problems and we could work through this. But then she said something that made everything clear. She said, "What am I supposed to do without you? Who's going to take care of me?" And there it was. The truth. She didn't love me. She never had. She loved what I could do for her. She loved the house I built. She loved the money I made. She loved the security I provided. But she didn't love me. I told her to leave. She started crying again, but this time I didn't feel sorry for her. She tried a different tactic. She got up and tried to hug me. She tried to kiss me. She put her hand on my chest and said we could fix this. We could make it work. She'd be a better wife. She'd never see Carlo again. But I pushed her away. I told her it was over. We were done. The marriage was finished. She could keep the house in Leyte. I didn't want it. I never wanted to see it again. But I wanted a divorce, and I wanted it as fast as possible. She got angry then. Really angry. She started yelling at me. She said I was throwing away our marriage over one mistake. She said I was being cruel and cold. She said I never really loved her if I could give up so easily. Then she said something I'll never forget. She said, "You're just like all the other foreigners. You think you can come here and buy a wife. And when she doesn't do exactly what you want, you throw her away." I told her to get out. She left, slamming the door behind her. I contacted a lawyer the next day. I told him everything. I had proof. I had text messages between Rosa and Carlo that I'd found on an old tablet we shared. Messages going back months. Messages that made it clear this wasn't just some recent fling. This was a full relationship. They talked about their future together. They talked about how they wished they could be together all the time. They talked about me, about how I was useful but boring, about how Carlo made her feel alive in a way I never could. The lawyer said I had a strong case for annulment. In the Philippines, divorce doesn't really exist, but annulment does. It's expensive and it takes time, but it can be done, especially with proof of infidelity. He said I should be able to walk away without losing anything else, except what I'd already put into the house. And since the house was in Rosa's name, there was nothing I could do about that anyway. I'd lost $80,000, 4 years of savings, but at least I wouldn't lose anything more. The annulment process started in October of 2021. It took almost a year to finalize. A year of paperwork and court dates and lawyers. A year of Rosa trying to contact me, begging me to reconsider, then getting angry when I wouldn't, then begging again. A year of me trying to rebuild my life and figure out who I was without her. I stayed in Manila. I moved to a different condo in BGC, something smaller and cheaper, something that didn't have any memories of her. I kept working. I started dating again eventually, but I was different now. I was cautious. I was guarded. I didn't trust easily. Every time I met someone new, every time I started to feel something, I'd remember Rosa and I'd pull back. I'd wonder if this new woman was just like her. If she was just interested in my money. If she'd betray me the same way. It wasn't fair to them, but I couldn't help it. The annulment was finalized in September of 2022. Almost exactly a year after I'd caught Rosa with Carlo, I got the papers in the mail, and I felt nothing. No relief, no happiness, no closure, just nothing. I never went back to Leyte. I never saw the house again after that day. I heard through mutual friends that Rosa and Carlo moved in together, that they're still together now, that they're living in the house I built, sleeping in the bed I bought, living the life I'd imagined for myself. And the worst part is I can't even hate her for it, because part of me understands she was poor. She grew up with nothing. I represented a way out of that poverty, a way to build a better life. And when she had to choose between security and love, she tried to have both. She just got caught. But understanding doesn't make it hurt less. I'm still in the Philippines. I'm still in Manila. I still love this country despite everything that happened, because it wasn't the country that betrayed me. It was one person, and I know there are good people here. I've met them. I've made friends. I've started to build a new life. But I'm not the same person I was when I first arrived in 2019. That guy was naive. That guy trusted too easily. That guy believed that love was enough. Now I know better. I know that you can't build a future with someone who's living in the past. I know that you can't buy love no matter how much money you spend. I know that a house is just a building, and it doesn't mean anything if the person you built it with doesn't really want to be there. I know that sometimes the person sleeping next to you is dreaming of someone else. And I know that trust, once broken, can never fully be repaired. You can patch it. You can work on it. But there will always be cracks. There will always be doubts. There will always be that voice in the back of your mind asking, is this real? Or am I being fooled again? It's been 3 years since that day I walked into our bedroom and found her with Carlo. 3 years since my world fell apart. I'm 50 years old now. I've started dating again, but I'm careful. I don't talk about money. I don't offer to build houses or make big promises. I take things slow. Maybe too slow. Maybe I'll never fully trust someone again the way I trusted Rosa. Maybe that's the real cost of what she did. Not the $80,000, not the house, but the part of me that believed in love without conditions. That part is gone, and I don't know if I'll ever get it back. So if you're thinking about building a house for someone in a foreign country, if you're thinking about making big investments in someone you love, let me give you some advice. Make sure that person loves you for you, not for what you can provide. Make sure they're with you because they want to be, not because you're their best option. Make sure you're not just a means to an end. And if you can't be sure, if there's any doubt at all, don't do it. Don't build that house. Don't make that investment. Protect yourself, because losing money hurts. But losing your ability to trust, losing your belief in love, that hurts so much more. I don't regret coming to the Philippines. I don't regret meeting Rosa, because if I hadn't gone through all of that, I wouldn't be who I am today. Older, wiser, sadder maybe, but stronger too. I know what I'm worth now. I know what I deserve. And I know that I'd rather be alone than be with someone who's only with me for what I can give them. The house in Leyte is still there. I looked it up on Google Earth once just out of curiosity. I could see the roof through the coconut trees. Our house, except it was never really ours. It was always hers. I was just the one who paid for it. That's the thing about building a house in someone else's name. You might pay for every brick, every tile, every piece of wood, but it will never really be yours. You're just a guest in a house you built. And when they decide they don't want you there anymore, there's nothing you can do but leave. So I left. And I'm still here in Manila. Still working, still living, still hoping that maybe someday I'll meet someone who loves me for who I am. Someone who doesn't need me to build them a house to prove my love. Someone who would be happy with me in a small apartment or a big mansion or a tent on the beach. Someone who chooses me not because I'm their best option, but because I'm their only option. Because they can't imagine their life without me. That's what I'm waiting for. That's what I deserve. And until I find it, I'm okay being alone. Because being alone is better than being with someone who makes you feel alone. Trust me on that. I learned it the hard way, and I learned it in a house that broke my heart. Sometimes I think about what would have happened if I'd never taken that flight to Tacloban, if I'd just trusted her excuses and stayed in Manila, working my long nights, believing her lies. Maybe I'd still be living in that fantasy. Maybe I'd still think I had a wife who loved me. Maybe ignorance really is bliss, but then I remember how it felt every time she didn't answer the phone. That knot in my stomach, that voice in my head telling me something was wrong, and I realize I couldn't have lived like that forever. The truth would have come out eventually. It always does. Maybe I would have shown up unannounced on a different day. Maybe someone would have told me. Maybe I would have found more messages. But the ending would have been the same. Because the truth is, she never loved me the way I loved her. And you can't build a life on that kind of foundation. It will always crumble. I think about the other expats I met in Leyte, Tom and Dave and all the other guys who seem so happy with their Filipino wives and their beautiful houses. I wonder how many of them are living the same lie I was living. How many of them have wives who are with them for security, not love? How many of them have houses that feel like homes, but are really just expensive prisons? Or maybe I'm just bitter. Maybe some of them really did find true love. Maybe some of them really are happy. I hope they are. I really do. Because this kind of pain, this kind of betrayal, I wouldn't wish it on anyone, not even on the people who hurt me. Rosa tried to contact me a few times after the annulment was finalized. Birthday messages, Happy New Year texts. Hey, how are you? Can we talk messages? I never responded. There was nothing left to say. She made her choice and I made mine. And those choices took us in different directions. I heard from a mutual friend that she's pregnant now, that Carlo is the father, that they're planning to get married. Part of me felt sick when I heard that, sick thinking about them raising a family in the house I built, sick thinking about how everything worked out for her in the end. But another part of me felt free. Because that baby, that family, that life, it's not mine. I don't have to worry about it. I don't have to care. They can have their happiness. I'll find my own. I've been thinking about leaving the Philippines, not because I don't like it here anymore, but because everywhere I go I see couples. I see expats with their young Filipina girlfriends and wives, and every time I wonder if they're real or fake, if the girl really loves him or if she's just playing the game. It's not fair to think that way. I know it's not, but I can't help it. Rosa broke something in me that I don't know how to fix. My therapist, I started seeing a therapist after all this. She tells me I have trust issues. No kidding. She tells me I need to work through my trauma before I can have a healthy relationship again. She tells me not every woman is like Rosa. Not every relationship is doomed to fail. But knowing something intellectually and feeling it in your heart are two different things. I know there are good women out there. Women who love genuinely, who don't play games, who value loyalty and honesty. I've met some of them. I've even dated a few. But every time things start getting serious, I panic. I find reasons to end it. I convince myself it won't work. Because deep down, I'm terrified of getting hurt again. I'm terrified of building something beautiful, only to watch it burn down. Last month, I went on a date with a woman named Clara. She's a nurse, 38 years old, never been married, no kids. We met at a bookstore, of all places, both reaching for the same novel at the same time. It was like something out of a movie. We got coffee. We talked for hours. She was smart, funny, genuine. She didn't ask about my job or my money. She asked about my favorite books, my dreams, what made me laugh. It was the best first date I'd had in years. We went out again and again. By the fourth date, I was starting to feel something. That flutter in your chest when you see someone you like. That excitement when your phone buzzes and it's a message from them. That hope that maybe, just maybe, this could be something real. But then she invited me to her family's house for dinner, to meet her parents. And I panicked. I made up an excuse. I said I had a work emergency. I cancelled. And then I stopped responding to her messages. Just ghosted her completely. She didn't deserve that. She was a good person who did nothing wrong. But I couldn't do it. I couldn't take that next step. I couldn't risk getting close to someone again, so I sabotaged it. And now, I'm alone again. And part of me is relieved. Because being alone is safe. Being alone means I can't get hurt. My therapist says I need to forgive Rosa. Not for her sake, but for mine. She says holding on to anger and resentment is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. She says, until I forgive Rosa and let go of what happened, I'll never be able to move forward. But how do you forgive someone who stole 4 years of your life? How do you forgive someone who lied to your face every single day? How do you forgive someone who took your money, your trust, your love, and threw it all away for a guy she'd known since high school? I don't know if I can. I don't know if I want to. Because forgiving her feels like saying what she did was okay. And it wasn't okay. It will never be okay. But I also know that my therapist is right. This anger is eating me alive. It's keeping me stuck in the past. It's preventing me from being happy. So I'm trying. I'm really trying. Some days are better than others. Some days I wake up and I don't think about Rosa at all. Those are good days. Other days, something will remind me of her. A song on the radio, a smell, a couple walking hand in hand on the street, and it all comes flooding back. The love, the betrayal, the pain. Those are hard days. I've started doing things for myself. Things that make me happy. I joined a gym. I started rock climbing. I joined a book club with other expats. I'm trying to build a life that doesn't revolve around finding someone to love, because maybe that's been my problem all along. Maybe I've been so focused on finding love that I forgot how to love myself. Maybe I need to be happy alone before I can be happy with someone else. It sounds like therapy talk because it is, but it's also true. For so long, I defined my worth by whether someone loved me. When Rosa said yes to marrying me, I felt valuable. I felt like I mattered. And when she betrayed me, I felt worthless, like I wasn't enough, like there was something wrong with me that made her choose someone else. But the truth is, her betrayal says nothing about me. It says everything about her. About her choices, about her character, about her inability to be honest. I was enough, I am enough, I just wasn't enough for her. And that's okay, because she wasn't enough for me either. A real partner doesn't lie. A real partner doesn't cheat. A real partner doesn't build a whole secret relationship behind your back. So maybe I didn't lose anything when I lost Rosa. Maybe I dodged a bullet. Maybe I'm better off now than I would have been if I'd never found out. I've started doing things for myself, things that make me happy. I joined a gym, I started rock climbing, I joined a book club with other expats. I'm trying to build a life that doesn't revolve around finding someone to love, because maybe that's been my problem all along. Maybe I've been so focused on finding love that I forgot how to love myself. Maybe I need to be happy alone before I can be happy with someone else. It sounds like therapy talk because it is, but it's also true. For so long, I defined my worth by whether someone loved me. When Rosa said yes to marrying me, I felt valuable. I felt like I mattered. And when she betrayed me, I felt worthless, like I wasn't enough, like there was something wrong with me that made her choose someone else. But the truth is, her betrayal says nothing about me. It says everything about her. About her choices, about her character, about her inability to be honest. I was enough, I am enough, I just wasn't enough for her. And that's okay, because she wasn't enough for me either. A real partner doesn't lie. A real partner doesn't cheat. A real partner doesn't build a whole secret relationship behind your back. So maybe I didn't lose anything when I lost Rosa. Maybe I dodged a bullet. Maybe I'm better off now than I would have been if I'd never found out. I still live in Manila. I still work remotely. I still make good money. And I'm starting to think about what I really want out of life. For so long I wanted a wife, a house, a family. The traditional dream. But maybe that's not my dream anymore. Maybe I want something different now. Maybe I want freedom. Maybe I want to travel, to see the world, to have adventures. Maybe I want to focus on my career, to build something meaningful with my work. Maybe I want to invest in friendships instead of romance. Maybe I want to be the uncle who spoils his friends' kids instead of having my own. There's no rule that says you have to get married. There's no rule that says you have to have a family. There's no rule that says you have to build a house and settle down. Maybe the life I thought I wanted was never really my life at all. Maybe it was just what I thought I was supposed to want. And maybe now I get to figure out what I actually want. That's liberating in a way. Terrifying but liberating, because for the first time in my life, I get to choose without anyone else's expectations weighing on me. I deleted all the pictures of Rosa from my phone. That was hard. There were hundreds of them. Pictures from when we first started dating. Pictures from our wedding. Pictures of us at the beach in Leyte. Pictures of the house being built. Pictures of a life that doesn't exist anymore. I kept them for a long time because deleting them felt like erasing history. Like pretending those 4 years never happened. But my therapist said keeping them was keeping me stuck. So one night, I sat down with a beer and I went through every single photo. I looked at Rosa's smile. I looked at my own face, so happy and hopeful. And then I deleted them. Every single one. It hurt. But it also felt like letting go. Like releasing a weight I'd been carrying. Now when I look at my photo gallery, it's all new memories. Pictures from my rock climbing adventures. Pictures from book club meetings. Pictures of sunsets and street food. And random moments that make me smile. It's a new life. A different life. Not the life I planned, but maybe the life I needed. Next month I'm thinking about taking a trip. Maybe to Japan. I've always wanted to go, but Rosa never wanted to. She said it was too expensive, too cold, too foreign. Now I can go by myself. I can do whatever I want. I can stay as long as I want. I can eat at expensive restaurants or cheap ramen shops. I can visit temples or play video games in arcades. I can do it all without having to check with anyone, without having to compromise, without having to worry about someone else's comfort. That's the silver lining of being alone. Freedom, total, complete freedom. And maybe that's what I need right now. Maybe I need to remember who I am when I'm not trying to be someone's husband, when I'm not trying to build someone else's dream, when I'm just Michael. Just me, no expectations, no obligations, no lies. I think about Carlo sometimes. I wonder if he knows how much I paid for that house. I wonder if Rosa told him. I wonder if he feels guilty sleeping in a bed another man bought. Or maybe he doesn't care. Maybe to him I'm just the foolish foreigner who got what he deserved. Maybe they laugh about me. Maybe they tell their friends the story of the stupid American who built them a house and then left. Maybe I'm just a joke to them. But you know what? That's okay, because they have to live with themselves. They have to look in the mirror every day knowing what they did. They have to build their relationship on a foundation of lies and betrayal, and that never lasts. It can't, because if she can lie to me, she can lie to him. If she can betray me, she can betray him. And one day, when the newness wears off and real life sets in, he'll see who she really is. And maybe then he'll understand what I went through. Or maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they'll live happily ever after. Maybe their love is real and strong and everything mine wasn't. Maybe they'll grow old together in that house, watching their kids play in the yard I paid for, and they'll never once think about me. And honestly, I hope that's what happens. Not because I forgive them, or because I'm over it, but because the best revenge isn't making them suffer. The best revenge is being happy without them. The best revenge is building a life so good that losing me was their biggest mistake. And I'm working on that. Every day I'm working on that. I'm not there yet. I still have bad days. I still feel angry sometimes. I still wonder what if. What if I'd never gone to Lady that day? What if I'd called first? What if I'd just trusted her? But those what-ifs don't change anything. The past is the past. I can't go back and make different choices. All I can do is move forward. All I can do is learn from my mistakes and try not to make them again. All I can do is hope that someday the pain will fade and I'll be able to look back on this as just a chapter in my life. A painful chapter, but just one chapter. Not the whole story. If you're watching this and you've been through something similar, if someone has betrayed you, if someone has broken your heart, I want you to know something. It's not your fault. You didn't deserve it, and it doesn't define you. You are more than what someone else did to you. You are more than the worst thing that's ever happened to you. You are strong enough to survive this. You are worthy of real love. And someday when you're ready, you'll find it. Or maybe you won't. Maybe you'll find happiness in other things, in friendships, in hobbies, in work, in yourself. And that's okay too. There's no one right way to live. There's no timeline you have to follow. You get to decide what your life looks like. You get to decide what makes you happy. And anyone who tells you otherwise, anyone who tries to control you or manipulate you or make you feel less than, they don't deserve a place in your life. Cut them out, move on. Build something better. You deserve better, we all do. So that's my story. That's how I lost $80,000 and 4 years of my life to a woman who never really loved me. That's how I built a house in paradise and watched it become my personal hell. That's how I learned the hardest lessons about trust and love and betrayal. Was it worth it? I don't know. Some days I think yes, because I'm stronger now. I'm wiser now. I won't make the same mistakes again. Other days I think no, because I'd give anything to go back and save myself from this pain, to warn the younger version of me to be more careful, to ask more questions, to not trust so easily. But I can't go back. None of us can. All we can do is move forward. All we can do is take the broken pieces of our hearts and try to put them back together. And hope that someday they'll work again. I'm Michael. I'm 50 years old. I live in Manila. I'm single. I'm healing. And I'm going to be okay. Maybe not today. Maybe not tomorrow. But someday. I'm going to be okay. And if you're going through something similar, you're going to be okay too. I promise. It just takes time. So thank you for listening to my story. Thank you for watching this video. If it helped you in any way, if it made you feel less alone, then sharing it was worth it. Hit that subscribe button if you want to hear more real stories from real people. Drop a comment and let me know where you're watching from. Let me know if you've been through something similar. Let's support each other, because we're all just trying to figure this life out. We're all just trying to survive our own storms. And sometimes knowing that someone else made it through gives us hope that we can too. This is my story. This is my lesson. This is my truth. Build your house on solid ground. Build your life with people who truly love you. And never ever ignore that voice in your gut that tells you something is wrong. Because that voice is usually right.